Hi everyone, welcome to the visual guide for the Containment Unit S1T7 Extreme. As with any Primal Extreme, you'll find that this entire encounter is an elaborate dance that is best learned through practice and timing memorization. My name is Miztech and I'll be your raid guide. In the first phase, we have the main tank pull and tank him in the center of the room. In this form, Sephirot has a cleave and players should stack behind him to easily avoid this and other upcoming mechanics. Healers will have to deal with AoE blasts throughout the entire fight. Heal through these appropriately. 4 Einsofts will spawn in a T-shaped pattern in any of the cardinal directions. These Einsofts will grow in size over time, eventually covering large areas of the platform. Should a player stand in the green area of effect, they will be debuffed with vulnerability stacks. As such, the tank should move Sephirot to the free edge of the arena. While this is happening, 2 Fiendish Rage markers will spawn on 1 damage dealer and 1 healer. Players will have to stack to share the damage of this attack, but it's important to note that Sephirot will place debuffs on each player hit. That means, if players get hit by more than 1 Fiendish Rage, they will probably die. Furthermore, if the main tank gets hit by one of these debuffs, they will also probably die to the next auto attack. To handle this, we split the group up and have each Fiendish Rage marker go to one side of the boss, as the main tank is moving Sephirot to the edge. Both healers and the off tank will group on the right of Sephirot, while all damage dealers group up on the left, with both groups ensuring that they're not too close to the main tank. Once both Fiendish Rage attacks are complete, the green Einsoft puddles will disappear, and the main tank will drag Sephirot back to the center of the room. Again, heal through the AoE. Anytime Sephirot winds up a massive attack like this, the main tank and healers should expect a huge tank buster. Heal and cooldown through this as necessary. A single tank can handle all of the tank busters in this phase solo with appropriate cooldown management, or you can also tank swap halfway through the phase as you're comfortable. Next up, Sephirot will cast a single Einsoft bubble, closely followed by 2 more mechanics that can be confusing to handle properly at first. A few moments after casting that single Einsoft, 7 players will be marked with these AoE circles that must be spread apart so no 2 players are overlapping markers. There are 6 small circles and 1 large circle. At the same time, Sephirot will pick a random player to cast Ein on. This is a huge 180-degree AoE blast that will probably kill you if you get caught in it. All of this is happening while the Einsoft puddle is growing and leaving half of the arena as a no-go zone. So let's take it slow. The way to handle all of this nonsense at once is actually quite simple. As soon as the single Einsoft is cast, all players should stand between Sephirot and the green ball. This will cause Sephirot to pick a player and eventually cast Ein in the direction of the growing Einsoft puddle, an area of the platform where no player will be ever. This allows the entire arena behind Sephirot free to spread out each Ratson marker. It's best to assign players specific areas to spread, to avoid cleaving each other. Once the Ratson AoE blasts happen and Sephirot casts Ein away from the group, players can resume their attack. The tank should also be sure to turn Sephirot away in time to avoid cleaving the group. This series of attacks will continue until the boss reaches 65%. At this point, he will become invulnerable and begin charging up his ultimate, the progress of which you can see in the duty list. The higher this number, the harder his ultimate will hit, so your goal here is to get through the ad phase as fast as possible. The group will see 6 total sets of ads with 2 possible ad types, a large Chokmah ad and a group of 3 small Binas. The Chokmah ad has a bit of a tank buster and also applies Vuln up to magic abilities. The 3 Binas only cast magic attacks. As such, one tank should grab the Chokmah ad while the other grabs the Binas. Each time an ad dies, it will blast the raid with Genesis, a raid-wide AoE. The only real danger here is the Chokmah's Genesis, which can hit for a very high amount unmitigated. The goal here is to push out high damage, but not too high and that you end up killing yourself with 4 blasts going off at the same time. In our group, we destroy 2 spawns of Bina ads, while cleaving down the first Chokmah. After that, we focus down the first Chokmah, heal through the first massive Genesis explosion before killing the next 2 sets of Binas. Finally, we finish off with the last Chokmah ad. Once all ad sets are down, Sephirot will cast his ultimate and healers need to be ready with heals and shields here. This final phase can be very hectic, but again, once you break down each mechanic, it's really quite simple to handle. The hardest aspect of this part of the fight is optimizing damage while dancing around each mechanic. As with normal mode, very few mechanics have actual telegraphs or cast bars. Instead, you'll be using various visual cues to help you avoid damage. The first and most obvious is Yisad. This is also probably the most dangerous mechanic in this entire phase. Similar to Twintania's Twisters, this ability will take a snapshot of where you are standing at the time before causing a massive AoE pillar to spawn underneath you. The best way to deal with this is to bait the Yesod in a specific spot, and as soon as you see this indicator, which is a massive yellow flash across the platform, you move the hell away as fast as you can. Getting hit by a single Yesod will place a debuff on you and do a high amount of damage. Getting hit by more than one is deadly. Throughout this phase, anytime you see this yellow flash, be sure to not be standing in the area you were in when you first saw the flash. Immediately after the first Yesod, Sephirot will cast Force Field, which will either cast an orange or blue debuff on each member. These debuffs affect your vulnerability to either magic or physical damage, and will affect how you personally handle the next few mechanics. The first of these mechanics is the split AoE damage. Those with the orange debuff will stand on the side with the orange AoE blast. Those with the blue will stand on the side with the blue blast. Standing on the wrong side will kill you. Immediately after, 2 towers will spawn that will do high damage and paralyze the raid if someone isn't in them at the time of the attack. Since the damage of Fiendish Wail is purely physical, only players with orange debuffs can stand in them safely. That said, we have orange players immediately call out which tower they'll be responsible for as soon as they are first debuffed. With 2 players in each tower, we guarantee that there will never be a tower unaccounted for. As the towers are being dealt with, 4 Einsoft balls will be spawning in the center of the arena and begin to grow. Once the towers have exploded, all players with the orange debuff will be tethered and targeted with Da'at, which is pure magic damage. These players will run to the outer edges of the arena, safe from the Einsoft AoE, while those with the blue debuffs will grab the Da'at tethers off of them, safely soaking the magic damage. Once the Einsoft puddles disappear, there is one more set of towers for debuff players to handle, followed shortly by another split AoE. Players will stand on their respective sides to soak the appropriate damage. At this point, all the debuffs will fall off. Next up, 2 players, 1 healer and 1 damage dealer, will be targeted by the familiar Earthshaker targets. This will do damage in a line towards the affected player, and so we have them move to the far outer edges of the arena. At the same time, Yesod will flash and all players, including the Earthshaker targets, need to ensure they move from the area they were standing in at the time of the flash. Next up, Da'at. Since there are no debuffed players, Da'at does damage to random players in a sequential manner, with its first hit a heavy-hitting tank buster on the primary threat target. To handle this, all players must spread to avoid splashing damage on one another. We have assigned areas for each player to spread here. Next, we'll see towers pop up again. Again, since we have no debuffs, the only players that can survive the damage of each tower will be the 2 tanks. Assign 1 tower per tank and cooldown and heal as appropriate. Next up, we'll have another split AoE. But again, since no one is debuffed, this does a general amount of damage and players can stack in the middle for shields and heals. Lastly, we have a wombo combo of mechanics. Sephirot will cast Pillar of Mercy in these blue areas, knocking away players, while an Einsoft puddle grows in the southwest of the platform. Before the first knockback, we have another Yesod flash. So, to deal with this, we have the entire group stack inside the blue indicator for the first knockback, baiting the Yesod in an area no one will be standing in during the knockback. Once the flash happens, all players should position themselves on the southeast side of the blue indicator, ensuring they'll be knocked away from the green Einsoft puddle, but not off the platform. As soon as the first knockback happens, players will run towards the second blue knockback indicator, positioning themselves on its east side, enough to not be knocked off again. Finally, players will run to the third knockback indicator, and position themselves to be knocked southwest, directly into the center of the Einsoft puddle that disappears right before the knockback. This movement is the same every time this order of mechanics happens, so don't worry about any other random nonsense. Memorize the movement and you'll be golden. After this knockback dance, you'll deal with another set of Earthshakers, another Da'at with Yesod, tank towers, and split AoE. At this point, Sephirot will try to blow everyone off the platform, so be sure to stack right on his face. After this knockback, we have 2 sets of Binas spawn under his arms, and 1 Storm of the Word in the south. Each tank will grab 2 adds and be ready to handle their upcoming towers. Split AoE will happen, so healers be ready, keeping a close eye on each tank as they'll be handling extra damage from the towers soon. Damage dealers will be burning down the Storm of the Word. As soon as the towers pop up, tanks will stand on the edge of their appropriate towers, ready to move for the next Yesod flash, which will happen immediately after the towers spawn. All players make sure to move during this time. Once the towers and the Yesod is handled, the tanks can bring their Bina adds near the south, where everything can be cleaved down. Be careful not to destroy too many adds at once, as healers will have to heal through another split AoE, and you don't want them to fall behind. You'll have 1 more Yesod to move away from before Sephirot begins to cast Pillar of Severity. At this point, all players should move into the Storm of the Word puddle to be knocked in the air and successfully avoid Sephirot's arms. At this point, the phase will reset, and each mechanic will repeat until you either kill it or Sephirot enrages. As stated earlier, there is a lot of movement in this encounter, but with practice and memorization you'll be able to optimize your damage uptime on Sephirot. If you're having trouble with damage, note that his hitbox is quite large, and oftentimes you can damage him while dancing around each mechanic. And there you have it, Sephirot Extreme. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. As always, thanks for watching. Up next, we'll dive into Alexander Midas. Till next time.